Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack, and we also have
Calvin, ready to rock.
today we have the comic book Hero, and what are you talking about?
We're talking about the soft state of affairs with the comic market. These guys have lost their minds.
Okay.
All right, so you may have been like us. You did NYCC. Well, this was not a good year for me. I only attended one day. Other complications came up in the way, but normally I go there and I can get an understanding of where the comic market is in terms of what I can sell and what numbers I'm going to buy. What numbers I'm given in terms of what I can buy. So I bought, these are Silver Age Avengers books from the first run. We're talking issue 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, plus the first appearance of the Vision. Okay, so you had all of that. You had first Immortus in there, first Submariner, first Hulk-Submariner team up, whole bunch of good stuff. And I did my numbers when I came over. I'm looking at about $2,500 worth of books, by my estimate, based on condition and everything. So I figure I go, and I was looking to clear $800. Okay, because most of the time a dealer will do about 30%. Guess what the number was that I was getting offered?
What was the number?
$425, which is
Wow.
which is okay, a little better than half of what I came out there for. So, I spoke to one guy, and then I spoke to another guy. And after that, I said, I'm not going to keep going around any longer because those were two of the higher powered sellers there. So I said, if these guys can't afford it, it's unlikely that any of the smaller outlets can do it. But I did go back to one of the guys and I asked, what's the situation? Is it the books or is it the market? And it's like, well, it's the market. The trend has been down and the trend look like it keeps going down. But I also realized that these guys really just sell. They look to buy books, they want to grade them, and then of course they want to sell. So if a book is selling for 200, I guess you would want to get it for like, I don't know, $40 so you can, grade it with cost. I have to factor out grading costs because they probably grade in bulk, so they don't pay as much,
Hmm.
shipping and everything of that nature. But pretty much, the standard dealer thing is if the book is worth 100, most dealers want to try to get it for $30 at the end of the day. But, you know, the first run, key books with the Avengers, those first 12 issues, plus the Vision, those are usually pretty good books that you should get better money for. So I said, let me dive a little bit deeper and try to understand what's going on because these guys are selling graded books. So I said, let me see if I can get some graded numbers. So you got that first image?
Let's see. Let's see what you do right now. You seeing it?
Yeah. So these are sales. These are sales of Avengers #3, graded a 3.0 by CGC. So the last 2 years, okay, the 2 year average is $350 graded. Right. So I'm going and I'm getting an offer of $425 for all of the books, including the first appearance of the Vision. So I knew, so something's off. So I'm like, I look here. Okay, so a graded copy is going for on average over 2 years, 3.0. That's a low grade, $350. So even if the offer wasn't even 30%, right? The offer wasn't even 30%. But then I said, wait a minute, that's the 2 year average. That might be, too big because I'm averaging maybe the sales were higher 2 years ago. So let me condense it. Let me just look at the 6 month average and see where these guys were at. Can you put that one up? Or you
Yes,
already
up.
did?
It's up.
Okay. The 6 month average is better than the 2 year average. Okay. The 6 month average is over $100 higher. So I'm like, okay, and then it factors in, all right, I don't know what these guys are doing or what their business model is, but obviously it's not working. The 6 month average, okay, it not only exceeds the 2 month average, but the offer, okay, of 425 for all the books, it's not justified by these numbers. And I
Hmm.
looked at all of them. I looked at all of them. These are graded copies. I think one was signed by Stan Lee, so of course that one's going to be the outlier at the end of the day, even though it gets averaged in. But still, you look at the rest of them. This is where the final average is. So the market. I'm saying that the market is soft, but the market is soft really because of sellers who just don't have the stomach to charge reasonable prices at the end of the day. If you have a copy of Avengers 57, first appearance of the Vision, okay, there has to be a bottom number for that book that nobody's going to go lower than. Otherwise, it just doesn't make any sense, because then it means that anything that's not a 9.8 is pretty much just rubbish. Get whatever I can for it, and then the 9.8 is going to be astronomically high. I
Mm-hmm.
sell, for the most part, I don't sell graded books. I sell ungraded stuff. And if you look at some of the numbers that I'm doing, sold a copy of Swamp Thing #1, $450. Sold a variant of Savage Dragon 134, $500. All right. So the numbers are there. The money's there. It's not like across the board, guys are not willing to pay for any of the books. The big stuff, yeah. And even, the big stuff that's modern, they're still willing to chime in and, throw some money at. But then you look at I'm looking at the sellers. I'm like, how are you guys making any money on this? Because I already know the deal of, okay, I'm going to give you $20 for this book or something of that nature, and then I'm going to mark it up to 100. But these are the early issues of Avengers. Okay, we're talking the first 12 issues plus, okay, select issues, of course, not the all first 12. Okay, but the issue numbers that I noted plus the first appearance of the Vision, and the best you can muster up is 425. Again, I understand it could be a buyer's market, but then when also check, I don't see these issues just flying off the shelf or anything. It's not like you can't find a copy of Avengers 3 in a 3.0. They're there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you got to, at some point you have to stick to your guns and wait to get that particular number on a key book. I understand if you graded something like Crystal, the Crystal Warrior, and it came back a 9.6, and you want to sell it for $30, which I would never do. But by all means, you could go ahead and do that. But the Avengers stuff, that wasn't even lowball. That was more like a desperation throw at the end of the day. And I know that these guys are going to mark it up. So those are the numbers right over there. If you guys are sellers, I understand that the market may be soft, but hey, don't give away the farm. Don't just like, hey, I'm going to fire sale everything to try to get some money. The numbers are there. That's the average. It may be lower. Actually, I mean, the 2 year average is lower than the 6 month average. Okay,
Well,
so I was doing this expecting that the 6 month average would be like, a couple of hundred, maybe 150. This is the 6 month average. So, the offers that, these guys made didn't make a lot of sense. So hopefully you guys out there who are selling, are being a lot more savvy, okay, not following the trends, but following the quality of the books you have, and really holding your guns so you can actually make some money on this. Otherwise, there's no reason to do it.
do you see that their prices on the comics they had on their shelves were low, though? Did you also
Oh,
see that?
of course not.
Yeah,
Of course
that's
not.
the thing.
Of course not. But usually I expect that with a more modern book, if
Mm-hmm.
you will, or if you got like, some 90s stuff and you got like a short box of it and you're like, hey, I'm just trying to get some money for it. All right, I give you $100, that type of stuff. But not, I mean, the first 12 issues of the Avengers are pretty much all key books,
Mm-hmm.
meaning you should not have a problem. uh, I have to do this from memory, but this was Avengers 3, Avengers 5, Avengers 6, Avengers 7, okay, Avengers 9, Avengers 10, Avengers 12, and Avengers 54, first appearance of the Vision. Those are all key books.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, those are all key books. You shouldn't have a problem averaging $200 an issue. And I'm saying averaging. One book may be 50, another book may be 300, but averaging at the end of the day. And we both know the first appearance of the Vision is going to be a sought after book soon, because the guy's got the show coming out. What, White Vision?
Yeah. Yeah, they got another Vision show, so it should be something that will at least spike around the time of the show, and then possibly either go down or go down after the show's over.
Yeah, it'll
Uh,
dip a bit. It'll dip a bit, but usually how it works is that if let's say I'm the guy and I bought the book for 200. Okay, I bought the 200. I bought it for 200. If I want to keep it or if I want to sell it, doesn't really matter. The bottom line is what I spent the money on. So now if it's time for me to turn it over, well, I spent $200 on it. It doesn't
mhm.
make sense for me to sell it for 225 or 250. That's just too low an amount. So I'm going to try to make money on it. So most guys will probably, try to sell it for 3, maybe try to double the money, sell it for 4. And that's where prices tend to raise. You bought it, now it's time to sell it. I would like to make my money back and a suitable profit. Otherwise, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So books may spike at a certain point, but they tend not to dip as low as a lot of guys have the perception of. So it was $100 book. The show came, a lot of interest came up. It went from $100 book to a $300 book. okay, the price dips back down. It might dip back down as low as 180, but it never goes back to 100.
Well, what is it? The hard part is I don't want to. Were they? Have you bought? Have you sold with these sold books to them at the con? Have you already been to these people? Do they recognize you, or was it just like a off the cuff thing where they could have tried?
No, no,
Like they were lowballing.
no, these are guys I've sold to before, and I've sold to on more than one occasion.
Okay.
And I had actually made I had actually said, look, I'm going to stop going to sell to dealers because I'm not getting full value for these books. I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
better on my own. But because I had these Avengers books and I made pretty good sales on issue number 1 and 2, and I was
Mm-hmm.
still holding on to issue 4, issue 7, and issue 11. I said, look, there's going to be plenty of profit in those books for me. I can let these go for 800, which I thought would have been a great price.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought would have been a great price at the end of the day. I got them for a really nice price. I figured, okay, I can let them go for, I was asking 15. I figured I could go as low as 800, and I would still walk out and I'd be okay with it because I still had the other books and I had the other books in tow. 425 is like it just doesn't make any sense. I know I can average. I mean, we're talking at least. I mean, it was over about 11 books altogether. About 11 books altogether. I know I can average at least, $100 per issue, at least. And that's being conservative because I got the first appearance of the Vision there, and I'm probably going to average $400 or $500 on that one when I finally do sell it. So it just didn't make any sense. But for those guys out there who are like market soft and this, that, you can't follow that trend. You can follow that trend on a book that was following a movie, or it was a really big speculation book, or it's attached to one of these films coming out like the Marvels, and you're like, look, let me just get my money and get out of there. I don't want to, I don't want to worry about it, that sort of stuff. But on key books, those first, those, first 12 issues or the first appearances that happen with the Avengers or any other books like that, doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. Some of the numbers that I'm seeing, it translates also into, I see a lot of graded books, 9.8, and guys are selling it for $39.99.
Mm.
If you're one of the higher powered sellers, I can understand that because you probably sent in a whole bunch of books, didn't really cost you that much to grade because you were grading in bulk, and so you can just let these things go at the end of the day. But then you spoil the buyer.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
spoil the buyer where they're like, okay, now when it's time for you to raise the price, it's going to be harder because they're like, well, I was getting 9.8 books at $39.99. That's
Mm-hmm.
better than Earl Shot painting my car.
Yeah. Well, it's well, I mean, as long as you already experienced them, and you would know then because you already experienced them, and they're kind of lowballing, and they're being, well, we're not buying the period when the stores, oh, we're not buying stuff anymore until they're like, doing the comic book men show and saying, hey, I saw that book at the con last time. I wasn't expecting it. Now it's a hard book to sell. So, it's one of those things where oh, at least in my opinion, where you get on the Walt Flanagan. It's like, you have
Forget
a
that
book
guy, man. Those those
that's 1,500, and they say, 200.
those those guys. I'm the comic book hero. Those guys are comic book heartbreak. Like, what? You want me to
Yeah.
buy this trash? 10 cents. No, 10 cents for everything. Not 10 cents each. Their approach is, and again, their approach is based on on their business model. My business model tends to work a lot better. I've discovered than the average comic book guy. My numbers tend to be a lot better. So, I can make better money at the end of the day because I'm just looking at some of it would be if it was a combination of two things where the prices were low and things were just flying off the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
So, where it was you had to pay $500 for the first appearance of Hobgoblin, Amazing Spider-Man 238 with the tattoos. Now it's $75, and it's just selling out. Guys are just buying it, buying it, buying it. Okay, because it has to be two things at the end of the day. You got to get the demand and the price. The demand and the price is low, okay, that's pretty much a soft market at the end of the day. But when you look and the stuff is still sitting there, you're like, all right, so I don't see why how you can only lowering the price is not attracting the buyers.
Mm-hmm.
And lowering the price is not attracting the buyers at the end of the day. So that stuff, that stuff you're better off holding on to. sticking to your guns on price, accepting a reasonable offer. Like with the Savage Dragon book, the original price was let's say the original price was like 650. Okay, and I ended up selling it for 500. Okay, the guy got 20% off. That's well within a good business model at the end of the day. 10, 20%, that's fine. Most guys usually hike up their prices 10 or 20% so they can give that type of discount.
Mhm.
That's fine. No problem. When your price is like 80% off based on the market, then I have to say, what kind of seller are you? At the end of the day. And then the other person's a player, and you're like, let me see how much. Maybe I can go for this, and then they already know they can't play around. They don't have, they're not in it for that type of stuff, so it doesn't work. But that bit of garbled word salad aside, if you're a seller, you gotta stick to your guns for your price. Otherwise, you're just gonna end up selling some really nice books for some ridiculous prices. And trust me, when it's time for you to re-up, it will not be that price again. The historical trend on comics is always up. Always up. Look at any of the books that you had when you were a kid. Those are not 15, 20-cent books. Look at any of the books that you had that were $1. They're not dollar books. Okay, and most of us had the nice stuff at the end of the day. You can look at books from the last 5 years, and a lot of the good stuff, the key stuff, it's not okay. It's not what it was. It's not what it was 10 or 15 years ago. So you definitely had a spike in the market, and you definitely have this in the deal right now. But the best thing is just to ride it out, and paying good money for a good book that you're going to be able to make money on is always a smart deal. Missing out on it, I guess, but then again, these guys must know something I'm not. They must know people who are willing to take $20 an issue for the first few issues of Avengers.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to cover?
No, just stay strong, dudes. Stay strong.
All right. Spin a rack.
We're out.
Out.